And this is why when you see some of these medical experts talk about it, they're kind of so upset because they know the danger involved here. We're playing with fire. First up is an update on the big news Judicial Watch broke last week that NIH, Fauci's agency, NIAID, was funding the creation of mutant viruses in a gain-of-function fashion in Wuhan, China. And this obviously was taking place, or maybe not obviously, but it was taking place in the run-up to the COVID-19 pandemic. And it made headlines all over the place. And it also got the attention of the Biden administration and EcoHealth. Now, we had uncovered these documents as a result of Judicial Watch FOIAs and the pressure of other litigation about what EcoHealth was doing at the Wuhan Institute and elsewhere in China. And these documents showed grant applications and reports about their activities there. And I encourage you, and we'll provide a link to the press release and underlying documents below to go and review the full material. Now, Fox News, Fred Lucas, who writes over at foxnews.com, did a story on Judicial Watch's big find. U.S. funded research to create mutant viruses at Wuhan lab ahead of COVID-19, records show. EcoHealth Alliance, which worked with Wuhan Institute of Virology, insists COVID-19 did not originate from lab. So this is Fox News, again, reporting on what Judicial Watch disclosed, and they quote the documents that Judicial Watch found with bat COVID coronaviruses that we've isolated or sequenced, and using live virus or pseudovirus infection in cells of different origin or expressing different receptor molecules, we will assess potential for isolated virus and those with receptor binding sequence to spill over. We will do this by sequencing the spike or other receptor binding / fusion protein genes from all our bat coronaviruses, creating mutants to identify how significantly each would need to evolve to use ACE2, CD26, DPP4, parentheses, MERS coronavirus receptor, or other potential coronavirus receptors. So like ACE2 is a vehicle for the virus or the spike proteins to enter cells. And it looks like that testing was done on humanized mice, hybrids, chimeras. And if that's not gain of function, I don't know what would be gain of function. They're changing the coronavirus to make it more likely, or to see if it would infect human-related cells. So big news, right? You know, they're calling the creation of mutant coronaviruses, specifically they're saying mutant coronaviruses. And so if the description of gain of function couldn't be any more direct. So Fox News was able to get a response from EcoHealth Alliance, which was the vehicle through which the Fauci agency, and frankly other agencies it looks like, was funding this gain of function research. An EcoHealth Alliance spokesperson told Fox News Digital in an email response, EcoHealth Alliance did not support gain of function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Any assertions to the contrary are based either on misinterpretation or willful misrepresentation of the actual research conducted. So what they're saying is that Judicial Watch and all of our experts are willfully, potentially misrepresenting what I just read to you, or misinterpreting it. Well, I encourage you to look at the documents, to look at other expert analysis of these documents and draw your own conclusions. Because the SARS-related research conducted by EcoHealth Alliance and the Wuhan Institute of Virology dealt with bat coronaviruses that had never been shown to infect people, let alone cause significant morbidity and or mortality in humans, by definition, it was not gain-of-function research. I don't understand what that means. I read to you what they were doing. They were creating mutant coronaviruses to see if they would infect humanized mice. That's the definition of gain-of-function. They were changing the function in a way to make it, their goal was to see if the spike proteins or other proteins generated by the virus would infect these receptors on cells. And they're saying that's not gain of function because they were working with coronaviruses that had not been shown to be harmful to humans before. That's the entire concern. Taking viruses and making them potentially more infectious to humans, including viruses that previously hadn't been infectious. So this is a nonsensical response as best I can tell. The statement added, the bat coronavirus research conducted by EcoHealth Alliance and the Wuhan Institute of Virology could not have started the COVID-19 pandemic. And they referred to a statement by NIH Director, former NIH Director Francis Collins, who said, analysis of published genomic data and other documents from the grantee demonstrate the naturally occurring bat coronaviruses studied under the NIH grant are genetically far distant from the SARS-CoV-2 and could not possibly have caused the COVID-19 pandemic. Any claims to the contrary are demonstrably false. So, first of all, why are they defending the Wuhan Institute? I mean, this is a Chinese government facility, so here we have the Chinese government, practically speaking, partnering with EcoHealth to tell us, no, there's no there. And we already know, based on other documents and other investigations, that they were specifically looking away or trying to discount the lab leak theory. So the idea that they know for certain whether this research that we were funding, we know everything about, and that there aren't, quote, other viruses more closely related, is just bunk. So, of course, we already know, based on other documents and what's been going on the lab leak issue, that, Collins and Fauci and company were desperate to suppress the lab leak issue. There was censorship about those who raised this issue, and the idea that they have full knowledge about everything either EcoHealth was doing or the Wuhan Institute was doing with EcoHealth money, and or the expertise that we were giving to Wuhan as a result of this gain of function technique that we were funding. So a few things about what Francis Collins said. They don't really know everything the Wuhan Institute was doing. We already know they're withholding information. And so they can't say with certainty that the techniques that were being used and as described in this report, or these reports that we uncovered, weren't being used in other coronaviruses. They simply don't know. And I bet you EcoHealth doesn't know as well. Certainly the Chinese have acted, the Chinese communists have acted as if they have something to hide, because people have disappeared, people have been punished who wanted to talk about this. Data's gone missing, and as Judicial Watch has previously disclosed, they weren't cooperating with the investigation. So to say with certainty that you know that this type of technique, this funding, this program didn't result in the development of coronavirus, it's bunk. And I tell you, we have more documents about to come out, which strongly suggest, even more so, that there is good reason to believe that our gain of function research that we did in partnership with the Chinese communists, that the Fauci was doing, looks to me like on the down low, in the sense that they were pretending to be against gain of function, or doing it very carefully when it was being done, when in fact they were just creating mutant coronaviruses in a haphazard way in China. Dangerous, dangerous activity. And then the NIH, they responded as well to Judicial Watch through Fox News here. Let's see what they had to say. The research we supported in China, where coronaviruses are prevalent, sought to understand the behavior of coronaviruses circulating in bats that have the potential to cause widespread disease. Okay, I understand that. Importantly, because of NIH-funded research to understand coronaviruses, the U.S. was able to move swiftly to develop vaccines against SARS-CoV-2 and save lives. Well, that's debatable. The NIH spokesperson continued, the administration also continues to work with partners around the world to press China to fully share information and to cooperate with international investigations to get to the bottom of the origins of COVID-19, a priority for this administration. NIH never approved any research that would make a coronavirus more dangerous to humans, an agency spokesperson told Fox. Well, isn't that all cagey? They're saying we, quote, didn't approve the research, although it's quite evident here that that type of research was being done, and they're suggesting there's more information to be had. So how I read this is that the Biden administration is saying, well, maybe Judicial Watch is onto something. We didn't, quote, approve it, but who knows? So here we've got the Biden administration semi-agreeing with Judicial Watch, it looks like to me, that there are issues to be further investigated, certainly, but in relation to the gain-of-function research that was being subsidized and directed through massive investments by Fauci's agencies. Again, mutant coronaviruses. And we already know from previous Judicial Watch disclosures, and I think I talked about this, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago or so, that in the middle of this grant process, the NIH pushed back on EcoHealth saying, it looks like you're doing gain of function. It looks like there's gain of function going on here. We've got an issue. We have the internal emails where they're talking back and forth about it. So in addition to me, what is plain as day, gain of function research being described in the creation of mutant coronaviruses, as this research is ongoing, you have NIH people internally with Fauci's agencies people talking about, well, this looks like to be gain of function. So I don't know how many ways you have to slice it before we recognize that it's gain of function research. Now, I don't know if you saw Dr. Fauci. He's been on TV recently. He had a big interview with the New York Times, and he's still trying to defend the indefensible. His dishonest answers, in my view, to Rand Paul about gain of function. He said, for instance, and this is what the Biden administration is pushing too a little bit here, is that, well, when I say gain of function, it means differently, it means different things to different people. Well, everyone knows what he was being asked about. Were they messing with coronaviruses and increasing their gain of function? Or changing their function in a way that it meets the definition of gain of function. And he pretends, well, if you ban gain of function, it means, we can't create vaccines. No one's saying that, and of course he knows that. So Fauci continues to be dishonest here. And the suggestion that by limiting gain of function research in these dangerous viruses, or making viruses that evidently aren't dangerous yet to be dangerous, is outrageously risky, and no one would agree with it. Certainly no government would knowingly fund it. So I don't understand what the controversy here is. I mean, it's one thing to know that there's a virus out there, it's infecting people, they need to mess with it a little bit because they're creating a vaccine. Whether that's the end of the world or not, or whether the risk is worth the benefit, that's probably a fair debate to have. I don't think there's any real debate that you take viruses and make them more dangerous just to see what might happen. No, no, no. And the danger here is, and I said it before and I'll say it again, is that if there was a lab, let me take a step back. There are kind of several debates here, right? Whether there was a lab leak or whether the coronavirus, COVID-19 was of natural origin, meaning it was out in the wild and somehow there was an animal to human transmission or something like that. And the alternative to that is the so-called lab leak theory, that it got out as a result of the virus of some type being worked on in the lab and someone caught it and it got out into the population. Now, when you talk about the lab leak theory, there are a few things that I think are raised as questions. Now, was it just a coronavirus that was a natural virus they had found that was leaked out or got out? So no engineering resulted in the creation of COVID-19. It just was a virus that was either knowingly or unknowingly within the lab. Or was it engineered? And I think the documents strongly suggest that that the engineering was likely behind the emergence of COVID-19. And then there's the word leak. Leak suggests it's accidental. Now, if it's engineered and it gets out accidentally, obviously that's a scandal. But why are we presuming it got out accidentally? I mean, I think it's probably the more likely explanation, but given the Chinese Communist government, I don't believe it's the only explanation. Was it a purposeful contagion put out there? I don't know. This is why all these questions need to be asked. Certainly, figuring out whether it was engineered or natural will go a long way in figuring out why, how, and why it got out. So let's not pretend all these questions have been answered and everyone is innocent. No, no, no. Too many people have died. Too many frankly, the whole world has been disrupted as a result of this contagion. And I tell you, there's got to be accountability. And Congress has got to get on the ball here. The government needs to get on the ball here because, as I said, gain of function isn't just going on in China, it's going on here in the United States, whether it's official or unofficial. It's happening all over the place. We've documented it. And so we're whistling past the graveyard in terms of the potential consequences. We've already seen what the potential consequences are if COVID-19 was, if that was an engineered virus. But what other engineered viruses are being worked on? What other viruses are being re-engineered or being changed through gain of function, being turned into mutants? Can you imagine the damage? And you know, we're talking about the erasure of the human race potentially if the wrong viruses get out that have been engineered in a way that I can't even imagine. And this is why when you see some of these medical experts talk about it, they're kind of so upset because they know the danger involved here. We're playing with fire. So as I said, more is coming, so stay tuned. But this coronavirus scandal, we're just skimming the top. And thank God for Judicial Watch, because we wouldn't know virtually anything about what went on here if not for our diligence, our investigators, and our lawyers, and of course you, dear follower, who are spreading the word out about what I'm sharing with you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.